Welcome to Tavern Talks. Get around, travelers. Welcome to Tavern Talks, the video podcast, the talk show where game masters, TTRPG content creators around the world share their secrets, stories, and expertise on crafting the perfect TTRPG sessions and TTRPG games, of course. In this cozy virtual tavern, we'll be sitting down with expert GMs and TTRPG content creators again to swap tales, trade tips, and dive into the art of creating unforgettable TTRPG experiences. So from building to NPC crafting, from session prep to improvisation, we'll cover it all. So grab a pint of your favorite virtual ale, pull up a chair, and join the conversation. In this episode, we'll be chatting with Dale from Wyrmworks Publishing. And let's get talking. Let's get talking. Okay, so I'm going to first ask you your pronouns to address you.
Sure. My name is Dale Critchley, and Wyrmworks Publishing is our company.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Perfect. So, who is Dale? Who are you?
Who am I? I'm a husband and a dad. I've got 6 kids, and related to my the work that we're doing, our home has a wide range of um, disabilities, mental illness, neurodivergence, and including myself in all 3 of those. So, it's a big part of our family. I've been playing D&D since, about 1980, 82, probably 82. And, so we a few years ago, I it started out by, I kind of gotten away from the hobby, just life happening, being busy, and started to get into it. I was working with some at-risk youth, uh, all kinds of stuff going on in their lives and stuff like that, and I was trying to find a way uh, to get more adult volunteers for the work that we were doing, and um, but a lot of adults were kind of just nervous, feeling like, "Oh, I don't know, I'm not trained for this or whatever." And I said, these guys just need, um, adults in their lives that care about them, besides their families.
Of course.
And, um, and so I said, "Hey, we're going to start a D&D group. All right. All you got to do is come and play, and just being there, interacting, uh, it'll be, it'll be really great for them. It'll be great for you. And just everyone will benefit from this." And, so we launched it and had, 18 people the first night, and with ranging in age from 15 to retired. And we set up the table so there was a range of ages on each side, at each table. And over time I saw how beneficial this was just for everybody. And I thought, what if we really focused on intentionality of, what can we do to make it even better? And meanwhile, some things happened. I lost my job, um, and I ended up thinking about, there's not much in the way of accessibility devices in D&D, like the combat wheelchair come out, and um, but I thought, boy, that's not a lot. And so it started out with trying to create. I said, I want to create some devices, some magic items that
Mm-hmm.
really reflect kind of the experience of using accessibility
Mm-hmm.
devices, because they tend to have trade-offs, and
Okay.
they don't just erase the disability, and so I really wanted to kind of capture that experience. And like, for example, the kind of first idea that I had was my one of my daughters has um, epilepsy, and I said I'd like to create like a ring that using kind of the electrical impulses that go along with an epileptic seizure, where you can use this ring to stave off a seizure or to protect you from lightning damage. And then, like, you have to choose, and, it only has so many charges, and so it's like, well, what do I what am I gonna save my am I gonna let the seizure happen so that I can save the charge in case I need it for, to protect me or what? And, to kind of just capture
Mhm.
that experience of dealing with kind of the pros and cons. And, and I came up with a few other ideas, and then I thought, "Oh, okay, but the problem is this is a solution for a non-existent problem because there's no way to represent, the like, what you're actually like the seizure in D&D, or
Yeah.
pretty much any other, disability." And, um, so, okay. So first we need to find a way to do that authentically, respectfully, uh, and, uh, and so I started working on that, and I thought, "Okay, well, how, like, what am I all gonna, uh, include?" And I looked around, there's a few people that had done some things with, like, autism and some stuff like that, but this really wasn't much. It was I mean, like, I count on one hand the number of things.
Yes, yeah, that's why actually I stumbled upon your book because like there aren't really much about like that, and also like TTRPG hobby has made some strides in some areas to be more inclusive, yes, but it still faced the challenge when it comes to like authentically representing and accommodating, especially disability in its narratives and the systems and the communities. So yeah, like I that's why I actually want you to like talk all about your system to the people outside to this hobby to know that there is something that you can use because they're just okay, so there are lots of problems actually like lack of representation and like cultural stigmas like and inaccessible tools and like there is even resistance to change like and also there aren't many games with like inclusive designs. Like I get it, like we have some good games, and I'm gonna hopefully will also interview with those creators as well, like Turgis or lesbians and stuff like that, like monster series and like, but still there is so much need to these inclusive gaming. So that's why I really appreciate your work, and I just want to ask before we talk about your creations, um, let's say that what sparked your interest in TTRPG actually?
I mean, eh, so, like I mentioned, since I've been playing, uh, since the early '80s, I was actually
School.
yeah, when I was a kid, there was, we had the gifted and talented programs, um, and I mean, back then I was really into mythology and stuff like that, and the counselors were trying to find, like, supplemental stuff for me, and they said, "Hey, you should check out D&D." And,
Mhm.
and, uh, this was the Satanic Panic was going on. My mom was real nervous about it and that, but
Mhm.
then, I was actually in Boy Scouts,
Oh,
and, we had some players. I was living in Wisconsin, which is kinda where everything all started,
yeah.
and, and we there was some other guys in our scout troop that were players, and so in fact, it's kind of funny, the first, module that I ever played in, was Tomb of Horrors, which, I mean, was not intended as a, "This is where you start," but, I had a great time and just, and kinda it was so much fun, it just went from there, and just over time, it was uh, just love the game, and, and so even, uh, even when I played, we moved and stuff and found friends that played and that and kind of played through uh when after second edition came out and and then kind of stopped before third edition came out. Uh, I was, because by that point I was in grad school and I couldn't afford anything
Oh,
um so, so then I just stopped. I mean, always still talked about it and stuff, looked for ways to, but just kind of life got busy um, and it really wasn't until when I started up this group, which was in September of 2019,
mhm.
um, that, yeah, I got back into it, picked up 5th edition and was, kind of a little nervous because 'cause it'd been a while since I played that, and I mean, I'd played other systems, Shadowrun, I'm a huge Shadowrun fan and play and just, like, a whole bunch of other, games along the way, but, um but yeah, like, I picked up 5th edition and looked at it and went, "Oh, this is I like this. This is doing a lot of the things that back in the sort of first edition days that I wanted to do," and I and came up with sort of, homebrew rules and stuff that were kinda similar,
Mhm.
but I was like, "Oh, this is actually pretty elegant, how this is all put together and stuff," and so once I wrapped my head around it, uh, I've just really enjoyed it, and I've been, it's also the easiest way to find players too. So, um, so I haven't had a lot of chance to play anything else since then. Uh,
Yeah, the best part should be, like, people are not thinking the actual TTRPG players are Satanists anymore, so yeah, something has changed.
I mean, ironically, it was actually when I started this group, it was at a church. So I mean, well, that's how far we've come. Although there were people there that were, nervous about it because of that history, um, but we had so leaders come check it out and go, "Yeah, yeah, that's all right." Although it was kind of funny because so I was DMing one table and then we had a young guy that was leading the other table at that point, and and we get all done and I said, "So how'd it go?" and stuff like that. He's like, "Oh, we were fighting cultists." I'm like, "Are you kidding? On a night where like people are coming to check things out and see if there's any like Satanism or anything like that, and you had cultists." So it was funny. It was everything was fine in that. Um, and and yeah, I mean, I was actually one of the pastors at the church at the time,
Oh,
and it was yeah when I lost my job there that then the groups still in fact those groups are still going now.
like,
Um,
really? What
yeah, but when we because after I left there, they said, "Hey, we want to keep playing." I said, "Okay, well, it won't be affiliated with the church anymore," and they said, "Oh, I don't care about that, we just wanna keep playing." And, so we kept going, and in fact, um, I just moved to Colorado a few months ago, and it just fairly recently gotten back together because we started during COVID, we went online.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so the group started meeting in person again. And then when I said, "Oh, well, I'm moving," um, they said, "Well, we're going to keep going." And so I'm thrilled about that. And so just one of the other players picked up and so took over for me. And and so I'm so happy that all that stuff is still going and just the people that we've had kind of people come and go and stuff um but yeah it's just it's and I've gotten so many comments from people in those groups saying this is such a good thing, this it just really made my life better, so that's fantastic.
That's the soul of the TTRPGs, like, that's you that they're uniting you, sometimes dividing you, but yeah, that's really is about it. So, I also would like to return to our main subject, that's your of course, your work, and also why you start actually, you just pinpoint and hint something, but I still want to know about that. Why you started this project? Why your project matters to all of us, and uh, what people will find when they purchase your book? Because I want to share the link in this video comment section. So, um, yeah. What separates it from the others, other than like the disability part, of course, also.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about media, like movies, TV, just about anything, um, and you think about how many actual disabled characters are there in any given show or whatever, and usually there's none. Once in a while, there's one, and usually, if there is one, like the disability is the subject of whatever it is.
Yeah, subject of his character. Yeah, definitely got that part. Definitely got it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's just I mean, when you consider, disabled, neurodivergent, and mentally ill people, alright, you're talking about 20% of the population, and,
Mhm.
and when you think, "Okay, there's that many people, and yet they're not represented in media." Imagine if you had a movie where there's, like, no women.
But
Like like
yeah, like what?
That would be I mean, you're talking to, like, a movie like I Am Legend or something like that,
Yes.
where, like, that's the point of it, right?
Well, like when you put and think about it, when you just put one woman into the show and you're making it about the woman only and it being woman or stuff like that. That's weird. Like, why would you do that? Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely get it. That really something that I wasn't really that much of aware of, and that enlightened me right now. Like, really, media is just double side of this. I thought about
Right, so, in D&D, we're or any role-playing game for that matter, right? We're creating a world. All right. When you create a world, you're starting with the real world. I mean, that's your basis, and then you change it. Like, okay, what if it's like the real world, but there's dragons and there's magic and or whatever else.
it.
And all right, so you're making these changes, right? So if you're creating a world and one of the changes is okay, but there's no disabled people there.
Like, how?
This is like, what? And and it's so the thing is, for most people, and myself included, until I kinda got started on this and realized it. I mean, like, I never noticed it before, and
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. This is
that's
so."
true.
And, when you consider the kind of the creatures and all the dangers that are in those worlds and stuff like that, like, yeah, there's probably gonna be disabled people there. Um, and,
But
and
people
that
are thinking it like thinking disabilities are all or often they're seen it as a condition to fix through magic or technology, but rather than as like a natural aspect of a character's identity. So
Right,
that's the problem itself. Or like for instance, like a physical disability may be treated as a negative trait without offering meaningful narrative compensation or something. Like it but that's weird. Or like some traditional think about traditional fantasy heroes. They are often portrayed as physically and mentally exceptional, sidelining representations of like disabled characters. So that's really weird, right? You're totally right about it. Like people are just blaming the magic, blaming the system. That's why they're not. But like even in the magical worlds, the magic is not like not like everyone can like unquote unquote fix everything or have to fix everything or yeah, that's weird.
right, sure. So, okay, so I live in the United States, all right? And we, like, we've got all kinds of medical technology that is, it's pretty magical, right? Um, and yet, uh, I don't have access to a lot of it, right? Because I can't afford it. And that's the case with a lot of people, all right? And so just because even the ability to change it exists doesn't mean that that you're going to have access to it. I mean, you don't have high level clerics in every little village.
Yeah.
Okay. And then um, you have like uh, congenital, congenital conditions. You're born this way. All right. Well, can you can you fix something that your body is designed to be that way? All right.
Mm.
You're not repairing it. Like that's who you are. To for like say a person who is born with one arm. All right.
Yeah.
When you heal that, right? That's kind of like
Doesn't mean to heal that, for example. Like
it's like you dragging one coming up to an elf going, "Oh, I need to heal your missing pail there," you know? It's like, "Oh, that's not who I am." Okay. And then on top of that, this just like, okay, I have ADHD. All right.
mm,
And I attribute a lot of the creative ideas that I have to my ADHD. I mean,
yeah.
it helps me come up with all kinds of amazing ideas. Right. And so like I don't I don't want that fixed, all right? That's not broken. That's just
Yeah.
who I am. And yes, it does make my life more difficult in some situations. Yes, I use medication at times to help me to focus, to help my memory and things like that. But um but I like that's part of who I am and I'm proud of that.
Yeah, that's my identity. Yeah. That's what makes me me.
And so like I don't want that fixed. And and
And what will
so
happen if it's fixed? Like, for example, if you're playing this in a TTRPG session, so am I going to change my whole character or identity, the whole role playing? Or am I just gonna think like it's not happening right now? Like, what is it? Like, how am I'm gonna respond that? Or is there any available mechanics in the system that I can change my usual daily life?
right. And so we wanted to make if for players to be able to play characters that represent all those different experiences. I didn't want to leave anyone out. All right.
Hmm.
I've got kids that have like extremely rare neurological conditions. Okay. And I thought and so much of the disability experience is being left out of things. I didn't want anyone to feel left out. And
That's really nice.
so, uh, how do I how do I put together a system where no one is left out?
Mm.
And, so as I started to just look through existing conditions of all different kinds, I noticed that there's a lot of overlap, right? And it's why sometimes things are hard to diagnose because, "Oh, well, you have chronic pain." Well, there's 1,000 different things that can cause chronic pain. Right, and so what I did is I started to break everything down by and we originally used the word symptom, but then realized that had kind of a negative connotation, so we changed it to trait, and, and just broke everything down, by trait, and just, started making lists, figuring out how to categorize it, and then just started working through, all right, what would that how would that trait be expressed in D&D? And so through this process, I also started talking to people, wherever I could find people, to say, "Tell me about your experience." And because I want this to be, as much as possible, uh, to authentically represent people's actual experiences and not just like what some doctor says somewhere.
Mhm.
And, and so we talked to lots and lots of people, um, to and said, "Okay, so based on your experience, if we represented it with, this mechanic or whatever, is that it?" And sometimes people would say, "Yes, that's exactly it." And other times people would say, "Well, sort of, but it's more like this." So then we kind of go back, workshop it, and say, "Okay, well, is this more like it?" You're like, "Yeah, yeah." And, and then, we ran the Kickstarter for Limitless Heroics and, was completely blown away, by the interest in it. I had no idea whether anyone would be interested in it.
There was the need actually. So, like, people really needed that. So you really helped a lot of people in that regards.
Yeah. Well, it was there were a lot of people that were really happy about it and a lot of people that were really angry about it, and that was a whole 'nother thing.
Yeah, people are weird, so
Um, so, uh, but, I thanks to, some therapy, I'm kinda dealing with that other end of it. Um, but, so yeah, then once we finished the Kickstarter and finished the manuscript, we sent it out to all the backers and said, "All right, here's the manuscript. What we'd like you to do is if any experiences you have that are represented here, um, take a look at it and see whether it accurately represents your experience. And if it doesn't, tell us. If it does, tell us. And so we got about 90 pages worth of feedback, and
mm,
and the based on the downloads we had, over 900 people took a look at it. And so then we got all this feedback and it was interesting because sometimes we'd have a particular trait where two different people are, their experience of it is different.
mm,
And, but I'm I'm pretty proud of this. We actually managed to take every piece of feedback that we got and incorporate it in. And, even where stuff seemed kinda contradictory, we found a way to reconcile that, so that it could, depending on the sort of nuances of different people's experiences, it could still capture that. Um, and so with that and we had tiers where backers could, submit, either names or ideas for more magic items and for NPCs and stuff. So it became a pretty huge thing that, way more than we ever expected. But it was just because we had so much support,
mm,
it allowed us to make it so much more, uh, than we'd hoped, and, so that was really exciting.
mm,
And, and so and, I love that it is, libraries, are using it. Just our local library here up in the Rocky Mountains, um, they we gave them a copy and like, "This is great. We'd love to, put this into circulation," and, there's college libraries, and we've just gotten so much feedback from people saying, um, comments like this: "I have spina bifida, and that is never represented anywhere.
oh,
But now I'm in D&D."
that's so nice. Really,
And,
that must be feeling awesome.
it's yeah,
Sure.
it's great. But, I mean, at the same time, and I need to emphasize this, we've definitely gotten feedback from people that say, "I do not want my experience to be, broken down just into, like, numbers or whatever." And alright, and that is a legitimate concern. And so we also try to emphasize that, there's lots of ways to represent these experiences, and different people want them represented in different ways. Sometimes people just want it narratively, that they just talk about, "Oh, well, okay, so I do this or that or whatever." Um, and, uh, and that's great. All right. And in fact, I keep saying when people say, "Well, I don't like it done that way." I would say, "Cool. Do, come up with a system or an explanation or whatever it is, um, of the way that you'd like it, because the more different options that people have, the better."
Yeah, definitely.
And so, so yeah, I mean, we certainly don't, claim to have the corner on this, just because of the variety of people's experiences, but also the varieties of um, the way that they experience that experience, the way that they, like, perceive it and represent it, for themselves, and the way that they want other people to understand that. Um, and so, I just the more options there are, the more, the more conversations there are about it and stuff, the better. And so we want to encourage that as much as we can. So, um, also, uh, we we want to improve accessibility, and so we produced we took the 5e system reference document
Uh-huh.
and converted it to digital braille. It's the first time that the core D&D rules have ever been available in braille.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, first time, except for the GURPS system, used to have a braille version. And but besides that, it's actually um, the first TTRPG that has ever been available, like publicly available in braille. They've been sort of private conversions that people have done for like local game stores or for their friends or something like that. But this is the first time it's actually been publicly available. And
That's really awesome. Yeah.
and our dream is to eventually, to have a brailer in-house so that we can make physical braille, copies of books for
Mm.
people too. They're expensive though, so, it's on the to-do list. We've got a plan, to be able to do that, but, we're a little ways off from that. But we've also, we've got miniatures that represent those, various disabled characters. We created the Limitless Champions line that was um, the, um, largest, most diverse, line of disabled characters, fantasy miniatures ever made.
So
And,
let me underline this. Okay, so if you're watching this and you feel somehow like you have to help, you can help so by visiting their website, buying their books, especially their core system, and also anything they're selling, or you can just donate them, right? They can donate you as well, right? Is there any way possible?
yeah, in fact, what a great way if you wanna support our work, is either through our Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or also, we make community copies available because we also believe in financial accessibility.
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, a lot of our fans are disabled. They're on very limited incomes and things like that. Um, and it's here in the United States, it's quite likely to get worse before it's going to get better. Um, and so we are doing what we can to make as much as possible, uh, these resources available, for those that can't afford them. And, and so we have free community copies that we encourage. You need it, go get it. Um, but if you want to support that, you can also purchase community copies. And so um, for every copy that you purchase, we match that purchase. And so you purchase one community copy, we make two available. So, but that the funding from that um, helps us to keep doing the work that we're doing, but also benefits the community at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Since there are a few projects for disabled persons, is it correct term to use, by the way? I don't want to offend anyone. So for disabled people, there are a few projects that they can use, especially like there was a project going on called Dots RPG. They've been doing the dice with braille alphabet, and you can also visit them, but also visit Wyrmworks Publishing as well, because the people that really needs to have some funding to continue their works, and especially in this hobby, we really are short of money. So if
Mhm.
you're creating something, we're really using our times, our hours, and our like everything that we got, it, basically. So I want to ask you as well. Can you um like show us or explain us or tell us an example about the core mechanics that you are showing people, or like can you give an example, any kind of an example for people
Sure.
to get it what's going on?
Yeah. So, one of the things about when you're trying to represent like literally every trait in existence, plus a bunch of fantasy ones that we added to. Um, it was, it's more than just pluses and minuses. All right. Um, Part of this was that as we were putting this together, we also realized that even any given trait, how much it actually impacts your life. Sometimes people use words like severe or or high functioning or different things like that, um and 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 we wanted to capture this concept that even to experience any given trait, there's a range of how much of an impact it has on your life. Like, just for example, I'm hard of hearing. All right.
Mm.
But I wear hearing aids and that mostly corrects it. All right. I'm not deaf. All right.
Mhm.
And there's people that are not deaf but are hard of hearing uh a lot more than I am. All right. Blindness is another fantastic example because when people hear blind, they assume um completely blind.
Yeah, like all black or something.
Yeah, right. Whereas, actually, that's a very small percentage of blind people, and so, we use words like legally blind or something like that, but so there's but I mean, I'm wearing glasses, okay? Um, my vision is not perfect, right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole range of these different experiences, and that applies to just about everything.
So there's this action going on. So
Yeah. And so we came up with the impact extent mechanic where, depending on how much it impacts your life, the mechanic changes. And, so sometimes uh, it's just, you end up with a modifier to, it can be like a modifier to to a skill roll, to saving throws, something like that, something like ranging from 1 to 4. Okay. But then there's other times where, um, I'm trying to think of an example. Well, okay. So with attention difference, there's other things that apply to that, where, sort of keeping track of time and so so we've got like mechanics that can play into that. Um, and or like with phobias, uh, where you may need to, in order to face, instead of just using the frightened condition, which is kind of an all nothing thing, um, that how you might need to make like a wisdom saving throw or something like that, in order to stay uh, right there with, um, in the situation where your phobic trigger is there. And allergies and distinguish
but
between
other
allergies and there, here's with ADHD kicks in. I forget the word. Like intolerance.
I got it.
All right. So, so someone might, it's kind of the common, people think that, there's a big difference between, say, a peanut allergy and being lactose intolerant. And
Yeah,
in
that's
fact,
it.
even the way that it affects your body, the way that actually, like, they're completely different things. Lactose intolerance is not an allergy. It's something else entirely. And so, we wanted to capture the difference there and stuff. So yeah, we've got all the different things, and then plus we have, one of the uh, favorite sections is service animals, and and so we have mechanics and work with, actually another great organization that does a lot with this, um, is, no, I'm drawing a blank. Talk about them all the time.
No,
Um, but um, but we worked with them and they helped us with to accurately represent all the different kinds of service animals. Usually, when people think service animals, they think, oh, it's a guide dog for the blind. And all right, but we said, but there's all kinds. There's service animals that people use for stability, and and then there's also, and these aren't technically service animals, but emotional comfort animals. And so how do we take that into a fantasy setting? And so that you can have a um, maybe your service dog is actually a blink dog, or it's an owl bear or something like that. And um, and so we came up with a range of that and different. It works kind of like the sidekick classes in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's not the same thing, but it's the same kind of concept. So they level with you and things like that, and they're not for combat. But they do interact with your abilities and provide benefits and things like that. And so, yeah, that was a really fun section, to include. It's very popular
Yeah, yeah.
and,
It really sparks imagination to think about like telepathic link, protective aura, detect magic stuff, like soothing presence. I don't like guidance, even alertness. Like when you think about like service animals in like D&D context, it may be even like alerting to magical threats or tracking poisons and cures. So they're like oh like they're really nice. I really like that idea.
so and that's the beauty of all this is that, it makes the game more fun, it makes it more interesting, it adds another dimension to the game. And so it's not like this sort of like, oh, obligation. We need to include this in order to be decent people or something like that. Like this is fun. It just adds extra fun stuff. And I always emphasize, you don't want to, like, no one should feel forced to include this, to play a disabled character or anything like that. Right.
Mhm.
But if you wanna kind of explore what that's like, understanding that playing that character and then being able to kinda set down the character sheet at the end of the night and walk away from it is very different from, "This is part of my life, every moment of every day."
Yeah, like they really like I said, sparks the imagination. Because I was thinking about it and like I even felt something like a bird for like have people have that like let's say bad side. That bird can create like can dispel illusions and at the same time create some sort of a light or a image to the like there are lots of ideas that can be
Sure.
like
Yeah, so
great.
in Limitless Champions, we have a character named Dread. And they have they're a warlock with a raven as a familiar. All right. Now, using the familiar, Dread is blind. All right,
Yeah.
but they can use the familiar's ability to see through the raven's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
However, we don't want this erasure of the disability. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I emphasize that they can do this, but they usually don't, because it's very disorienting because they're not used to navigating the world that way.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so it's
fair.
sort of like in emergencies, they'll use it, but for the most part, they'd really rather not. And so they have other benefits from the familiar, but don't tend to use that particular one.
Mhm. It really makes sense. Like I really like the service animal idea. So do you have any kind of other mechanics that you want to share? Like for example, the mechanics that really like um like even when you think about it makes you happy that you have that mechanic to like let people to use that?
Um, we did a this kind of ties into the epilepsy thing that I was talking about before.
Mhm.
Um, in we did an adventure called Time is of the Essence, and one of the things that I wanted to do was to show that, like, what we created for Limitless Heroics is not the only way to do it, and I wanted to create something different, just to say, look, even we're not you know sort of eyeing ourselves to that particular way of representation, right? And so there's a character. in that game that has epilepsy. But when a seizure comes, that it it also like sends out uh like electrical lightning bolt kind of thing. All right. And that is a side effect of the seizure. And so this character can actually um and sort of push themselves into that state that uh where they have a seizure. All right. But and and so it's like, well, I don't really want to do that. 'Cause it's not as pleasant experience, but at the same time, if I need to protect myself, it's a way that I can protect myself, and, uh, and so, just coming up with that is like, this is a, completely different kind of way of representing it, but also that kinda tying into, um, how people can use their experiences or sometimes, can kinda push themselves in ways that like, well, this is I need to do this, even though I'd really rather not, but here we are.
That's really nice. So, do you have anything to add about your, of course, system and your works and your Wyrmworks Publishing?
Um, well, one thing I do want to mention is that we've got a lot of projects in the works with moving and things and just other life happening. We're a little bit behind schedule where we wanted to be. Um, but we do have a number of things in the works and that I think are going to help a lot of people. And so I just want to encourage people if you want to keep up with that. If you go to our website, there's a mailing list. We call it the Horde, the Dragons, because we just really value our supporters and people that are interested in our work, and so they're our treasure. And so we encourage you to sign up there so that so you can find out about the work that we have coming.
Mhm. We're gonna put all the links in the description so you can easily find it, the viewers, so don't worry. And, I actually before we close, I actually want to ask you a few short questions. It is kind of for how we shoot the video. So, do you have any the question is, do you have any favorite TTRPG system? And if you have one, what is it and why do you prefer it?
Um, all right, so uh, I mean, I really like 5e, especially since I've been developing for it. Um, I've just gotten such I'm really amazed at the kind of the mathematics and everything behind it, the use of keywords and things. Um, it's it it's kind of it's formulaic to the point that you can uh, kind of figure out what works, what doesn't, and things like that. I really like that. But I mentioned I love Shadowrun. I love the setting. The and and I like exploding dice. And there's nothing like just, dropping a handful of D6s on the table and, that's fun.
Mhm. And, what was your favorite fantasy book and science fiction book?
Hmm. Um, okay, favorite fantasy book, the, Iron Druid series,
Mm, mhm,
um, and, science fiction book. Um, this is probably tied to my ADHD, but, I like short stories.
mhm,
Um, and, so, um, there was a book, I can't find it now, but it was an anthology that I read back when I was in, like, 7th grade, um, on mutants, and it had, like there was a story about a guy with wings, but there was, like, this story about um, like because of his mutation that he could access this library that nobody else was available,
Mhm.
like could see or whatever. And and it was sort of like discovering this, kind of hidden world kind of thing, just because of, he was born a particular way. And it kind of gave him this extra sense to be able um to detect this kind of stuff, and then meeting other people that also have this and stuff. And
Are you talking about mutant files? It may be, right? Because
I don't know, it was so long ago. It was in a fine.
this year, like 2000 or something. I remember something like that, but
Oh no, it was before that. This would have been,
before them? Oh, you mean your
yeah.
child? Oh, okay. Okay, so
Yeah, it would be like 1984
mm,
or something like that.
okay, so my final question is, do you have any secret sauce or do you have any secret techniques to create your TTRPG settings or systems or supplements? And like, what are you doing? How can how can they copy you?
So, another thing that we're working on, and we've got some of this stuff available to our patrons, um, is we're developing a uh, a new setting.
Oh,
But the elements can be taken and used in any other setting. And we, in order to do it, we created a new genre. We call it access punk. And and the idea is to that in this world, the people figured out early on that accessibility benefits everyone, not just disabled people. And so even if you have like a villain who's, who's uh, just selfish and wants to take advantage of people and stuff like that, like, well, um, if I want to, if I've got a shop and I want to, rip off my customers or something like that, um, then I, um, if I can't actually get them into my shop, I can't rip them off. And Alright, and so even from a purely selfish standpoint,
mhm,
like, just people kind of figured out accessibility is beneficial to everyone.
mhm.
And so, for example, we came out with a a city supplement called Stone Harbor, and, and it's right on the, it it's where kind of mountains hit the ocean, and so there's Merfolk City, um, that does a lot of trade with the city. And so, the city has this the runoff from the mountains, goes into aqueducts in the city, uh, and so then the merfolk can use those aqueducts to navigate the city. And then, uh and it's sort of like, bus lines, they don't reach every area.
Yeah.
So then there's also areas where the merfolk can drop down into a pool, and then there's wheelchairs there that are designed specifically for them. They're kind of backwards of what we would normally think of, where they lean forward. Because if you think
Mhm.
about how merfolk, like their posture in that, usually they're sort of leaning forward and, back arched, instead of whereas humans and humanoid would normally like sit.
Sure.
And so these are specifically designed for them so they can lean forward on them, and so they can use that to get out of the pool and then navigate the rest of the city. And so, just kind of thinking about, um, okay, in my setting, what would accessibility look like? And how would that be? Not only how could you do that, but I also like to think in terms of, like, also how would this apply? Um, it to how could you sort of adapt this idea in real. And, so, I mean, I when I was in college, I worked in our orthotic shop. We, building, like, repairing wheelchairs, building them specifically, um, for people that had different, um, muscular and skeletal differences and things like that. And so you just couldn't just sort of grab a standard wheelchair. You needed special padding and things to provide different kinds of support. And um, and so how can you take some of those concepts and just think about you know like, quiet spaces for people that have, that need, that or, different things like that, and just kind of, like, think about the different experiences that people have, and how would you apply that in a fantasy setting, and, and in this particular, like, in this case, it's like in this one city because of the mountains and the sea and everything, like, this is how it all comes together. How in how about in in your elven city or, like, okay, well, if everyone lives in the trees, well, then how do you make those accessible and things like that. And so, and I find that, some of these ideas, as you start to think about them, oh, if we had something similar to this in real life, just using modern technology instead of magic or whatever, hey, this would make everybody's life better. So,
That's really nice. So I really thank you for coming this show. Like I just stole some of your time. Sorry about that, but I really think people need that, need your work, and need your help, and you also need their help. So this hobby needs us, the people, to work on it, and also really thank you to trying to make this game more accessible and trying to actually defeat the tokenizing or tokenism in this areas and because they feature, like you said, they do feature disabled characters like tokenizing and reducing their identities to their disability rather than incorporating it into a broader and meaningful narrative. So that's why we do believe as Ecole de Willem and also they do believe as Wyrmworks Publishing, disabilities should have their space in TTRPGs. Thank you so much.
um, thrilled to be here.
So see you on the next episode, folks.